3 in the afternoon, a man on a stage in Sunderland told the children there were presents waiting on the way out. He meant it kindly. Up in the gallery, more than 1,000 of them stood at once. Between the gallery and the stage, there was a staircase, a landing, and one door. Door opened toward the stairs, and someone had pushed a bolt into the floor to hold it nearly shut. Nobody in that building knew it yet. Not the entertainers, not the caretaker, not the children coming down. This is the Victoria Hall disaster, and it is the reason the emergency door behind you at the cinema opens outward. It happened on Saturday, the 16th of June, 1883. Sunderland was a shipbuilding town on the northeast coast of England. Coal came out of the ground and ships went into the water, and both of those things were done by men who started young. Families were big, streets were narrow, children were everywhere. That June, bills went up around town for a children's entertainment at Victoria Hall. The hall stood on the corner of Toward Road and Lower Ice Street. It was a proud building, all arched windows and broad steps, the kind of place a town builds when it has money and wants everyone to know. The show was put on by a pair of traveling entertainers billed as the Fays. They had come down from the Tynemouth Aquarium, a few miles up the coast. Mr. Fay did conjuring and ventriloquism. Mrs. Fay worked the stage alongside him. The advertisement promised a treat. Every child who came would have a chance at a prize. Penny got you in. In a town like that, a penny was a real decision, and parents made it because their children asked. Saturday came bright and warm. Children walked to the hall in 2s and 3s, without their parents, the way children did then. Some brought younger brothers and sisters they had been told to mind. Time the doors opened, the queue ran along the pavement and around the corner. Around 2,000 children got inside. About 1,100 of them went upstairs to the gallery, because the gallery was cheapest and the view was best. The youngest were 3 or 4. The oldest were 14. Among them was a boy called William Codling, who would spend the rest of his life describing what a room full of children sounds like just before it goes wrong. There were almost no adults in that hall. That detail matters more than anything else in this story, so hold on to it. 2,000 children, a handful of grown-ups, one caretaker. His name was Frederick Graham. Graham knew the building the way you know your own house. He knew which doors stuck, which stairs were narrow, which way a crowd would move when it emptied. On that afternoon, he was, effectively, the entire safety plan. The show started at 3. It was by every account a good one. Conjuring, ventriloquism, a marionette act that seemed to move on its own. Children laughed. The way children laugh in a crowd, in waves, setting each other off. For nearly 2 hours, nothing at all went wrong. That is the part people forget about disasters. Most of the afternoon was fine. The trouble took about 4 minutes. Near the end, the entertainers began handing out the prizes they had promised. Toys were thrown from the stage into the stalls below. Books, whistles, small wooden things, the kind of prize that costs almost nothing and means everything when you are 7 then, came an announcement. Children holding certain numbered tickets should come to the stage on their way out and collect a present. Read it back and it sounds harmless. In the gallery, it landed differently. 1,100 children heard that the toys were downstairs and that they were going out now. They could see them going. They could hear them landing in the stalls. Every one of those children believed the same thing at the same moment. If I am slow, I get nothing. There is no malice in that. It is just what being a child is. They came out of the gallery seats in a body. The staircase down from the gallery was narrow, and it turned as it went. It was built for people leaving a concert slowly, in 1s and 2s. Hundreds of children entered it in seconds. Down at the bottom, on the landing, was the door. And here is the thing about that door. It did not swing outward, away from the stairs, the way a door in a crowded building has to. It opened inward, back toward the children coming down, which meant the only way through was to pull it toward yourself, against the weight of everybody behind you. On its own, that was dangerous. That afternoon, it was worse. A bolt had been dropped into the floor to hold the door in one fixed position, partly open, wide enough for a single child at a time. Nobody has ever established who put that bolt down, or why. The question went to 2 separate inquiries, and both of them gave up on it. The first children reached the bottom and turned toward the gap. One at a time, they squeezed through. For a few seconds it worked, the way a funnel works. Then, the stairs above filled. The children at the front could see the gap, and were doing their best to get through it. The children behind them could not see anything at all. They only knew the toys were being given out, and the line was not moving. So they pushed. That is the mechanism, and it is the same in every crowd crush that has happened since. The people at the back are not cruel. They are simply blind. They cannot see the wall, or the door, or the person already in trouble 10 feet ahead. They lean into the space in front of them, because there seems to be space, and every one of them adds their own weight to whoever is at the front. Multiply that by hundreds, down a staircase on a slope. The children at the door were held there, not struck, not trampled, held, pinned upright, unable to move an inch in any direction. Pressed like that, the chest cannot expand. Doctors call it compressive asphyxia. It works quietly and it works fast. There was noise, but the noise was coming from above. Halfway up the stairs, children were still laughing. They thought the delay was just a cue. William Codling remembered being carried along with his feet off the ground, unable to choose a direction. Somewhere in the hall, an adult finally understood that the sound had changed. Frederick Graham reached the landing and saw the children stacked against the door, tried to pull them free from where he stood. He could not, and now the cruelest detail in the whole account. The bolt was on the wrong side. The adults were on the stall side of the door, and the bolt holding it fast was in the floor on the children's side, behind the crush. To reach it, a man would have had to get through the very gap the children were jammed in. So they did the only thing left to do. They reached through the opening and pulled children out one, by an arm, by a collar, by whatever they could get hold of, one at a time, against hundreds still coming down. A man eventually tore the door bodily off its hinges. By then the staircase behind it was solid. The whole thing had taken minutes. Graham did not stay at that door. This is the part of the story that deserves to be better known than it is. He worked out, faster than anyone else in the building, that the children still up in the gallery were feeding the crush without knowing it. Every second they kept coming, the pressure at the bottom got worse. So he ran. He went back up by another route to a second staircase and started turning children around. He got roughly 600 of them out of that building by a different exit. 600 children who went home that evening and had their tea and grew up and had children of their own. Nobody ever made a statue of Frederick Graham. The word went out into the streets around the hall. A doctor named Lambert was among the first to reach the landing. Then came the neighbors, and then the parents. They came running from every direction, most of them not certain their child had even gone to the show. They stood outside on Tord Road and waited to be told. Some of them waited a long time. The count, when it was finally made, came to 183. 183 children, aged roughly 3 to 14, out of one afternoon in one building. In some streets, 3 and 4 houses in a row lost a child. Several families lost more than one. Town had lost a piece of an entire generation between 3 o'clock and 5. It is still spoken of as one of the worst single-day losses of children in British history. And within a fortnight, it had changed the way a whole country thought about doors. The funerals began on the Tuesday and went on until the Friday. 4 days. Sunderland's shops shut. The yards stopped. The river went quiet. Cart after cart went up through the town, and men who had never taken a day off in their lives stood in the street with their hats in their hands. A relief fund was opened, and money came in from all over the country, raised around £5,000, an enormous sum then, and it paid for the burials, so that no family had to. Queen Victoria sent a message of condolence and a donation of her own. She asked to be kept informed about the children who had survived. Letters arrived in Sunderland from towns that had never heard of the place a week earlier. And underneath all of it, in every one of those streets, the same question was going round. Who bolted the door? Because if that door had been left alone, the children would have come out. Crowded, frightened, bruised, but out. The whole catastrophe hung on one piece of iron dropped into one hole in one floor. The inquest opened within days. Children gave evidence. Some of them had been in the crush themselves. Several of them pointed at the same young man. His name was Charles Hesseltine, and he was about 22 years old. He worked as an assistant to the Fays. The witnesses said he had been at the door on the landing, and that he had set the bolt to keep the children coming through one at a time. Heseltine denied it, and went on denying it. And here the story hits the wall. It has never got past. There was no legal requirement in 1883 for that door to open outward. There was no rule about how many staff a hall needed for 2,000 children, no capacity limit, no exit standard, no inspection to fail. Victoria Hall had broken no law because there was almost no law to break. On Wednesday, the 4th of July, the jury delivered its verdict. The children had died, it said, from the partial closing of a door on the landing, fixed in its position by a bolt in the floor, but by whom there is not sufficient evidence to show. Read that line again. 183 children, and the official record ends with a shrug. It was not a whitewash so much as a confession of helplessness. The only sanction handed down was a censure of the entertainment's manager, a man named Coates, for not providing enough caretakers and assistants to keep order. Censure, not a charge. Telling off entered in a ledger. Sunderland did not accept that, and neither did the newspapers. Public anger forced a second inquiry. It went over the same ground, heard the same witnesses, and arrived in the same place. No liability, no prosecution, nobody. To this day, no one can tell you with certainty who pushed that bolt into the floor, which left the country with a problem no court was going to solve. If nobody was guilty, then the building was. And buildings, unlike people, can be forced to change. What came out of Sunderland was not a conviction. It was a rule. Parliament moved to require public entertainment venues to have a minimum number of emergency exits. Those exits had to open outward, and they had to be openable from the inside by the people trapped behind them. It sounds obvious now. In 1883, it was new. It is one of the earliest pieces of British safety law that exists because of one specific afternoon and one specific door. And out of that requirement came the thing you have touched 1,000 times without ever looking at it. The horizontal bar across an emergency exit. You lean on it, and the door falls open ahead of you. A version of it was patented in England in 1892 by an architect named Robert Alexander Briggs, who called it a panic bolt. The straight line from Sunderland to that patent is not documented, and it would be wrong to claim it. What is documented is the law, and the law is why the bar is there. Victoria Hall itself did not survive. German air raid destroyed it in 1941, 58 years after the disaster, and the site was cleared. The building where it happened is simply gone. What is still standing is in Mowbray Park, a few minutes walk away. A stone figure of a mother, seated, holding a child. It was neglected for decades, moved about, and finally restored in 2002 by people in Sunderland who decided the town was not going to forget. Go and stand in front of it, and you notice what it does not do. It names no villain, because there never was one to name. It just holds a child. Every time a fire door swings away from you, instead of into you, that is the Victoria Hall inquest, still working. If this one stayed with you, subscribe. There's another forgotten disaster waiting.